Hi folks, welcome to this week's episode of Downriver Outdoors. I was trying to find a couple filler videos to fill in between fishing and archery season, which starts in 16 days. So it came to me that I don't believe I've ever shown everybody all the bucks that I've ever killed. So let's go ahead and do that. I think it'd be a good idea. Be fun anyway. Hope you guys enjoy this. We'll start off with my first buck ever. This is the first buck I ever killed when I was 12 years old. And it just was a little spike. Just a little guy. But the cool thing is, he actually broke his skull when it must have been a baby or something. And his skull deformed like that. And his antler would have continued to grow just like that. And whenever I shot him, I literally thought he only had one antler. I just seen this one little 4-inch tine, and I was like, oh, whatever, it's a buck. It was like the second week of the season, so I shot him and I went up to him and actually had a little weird looking thing. So we thought it was cool, so we European mounted it. It's kind of neat. I like it, and I shot it. It wasn't very far. I shot it with my dad's 300 Win Mag. It was probably about 50 yards. He didn't really go anywhere, just fell right over. It was pretty cool. I was more than happy with it. The next year after that, I did a little bit of an improvement and got a little 3-point. I think it was on the third day of the season. My brother had already shot one almost identical to this. I wish I had it with me. It's almost identical. My brother shot one that had the fork on the left, and it was just a little taller than this one. And then I'm shooting this. Me and my dad were walking up over the hill, and it was feeding. It was snowed like crazy. Sun came out. It was still a little cold, and there's this little brush patch. Walked up over the hill. He was feeding in it, and I made a shot on him and knocked him down. Once again with my dad's 300 Win Mag. Not huge, but I was happy with it. Then, let's see. My next buck would be this one, I believe. And then the next year to that, I got a little better. I mean, if you want to consider that a point, I consider that a point. I consider this a 6-point. It's a little high guard, but I know the official rules, they're not inches long, so it's probably just a 4. But I consider it a 6-point. But I shot this one on the edge of a field in rifle season, once again, third or fourth day. My brother always kills a buck before me. I don't know why, but it always happens that way. So he always kills a buck, especially when we were younger, and Dad would kind of really take me out a little more seriously to kill me, won't get me one. So I went out, and he was I probably made a 125, 130 yard shot in this one. Made a perfect shot, and she rolled right in her spot. That was it. But I was really pleased with this one. It was my first rack buck, so I was really happy with it. Not huge, but I was really happy with this one. To get out of the beginner stage bucks, I guess. I think the next one was actually this one. No. So my next buck was a 9-point. This one has a really interesting story. Really embarrassing, but a really interesting story with it. Has a little kicker there. Has 9 points on it. And I set up, we were actually on the ground. This is before we set any stands or anything in rifle. And this was actually the first day. This is, I believe, the first time I ever killed a buck on the first day. My brother and my dad, I was 15 or 16 at the time. I think 16, 15. I was 16, but it was my 15-year-old license because my birthday's in October. But we ended up setting up. I was up on top of this hill watching a little bit of flat and a little bit of brush and stuff. And we set up the night before, first day. Dad put out a sawhorse for cutting wood. Put out a sawhorse for me as a rest. We set a chair up, got me ready, and he said, this will be perfect for tomorrow. So him and my brother sat down over the hill, probably about 500 yards away from me. And first light came, and I seen 2 does. That was it. And my brother shot, and I tried to get a hold of my dad, and eventually I did after like the 17th attempt. And he made a really long shot at a nice buck, and they think he just like nicked it or something, because there was just a little spot of blood, and that was it. And they tracked it, and they lost it and couldn't find it. We looked and looked and looked and looked, and they kept looking. I never found it. So about 8:30 or 9 a.m., probably around there, I heard a bunch of brush in the pine. There was a pine patch, like a pine line, right in front of me. It was an old strippings. And I heard a bunch of movement in there. Out comes like 10 deer, 2 bucks. The first one was a rack buck, so I got on it. And I noticed this one looked a little bigger, so I got on him. So I put my gun on. I had my dad's 30-06. I put his gun on the sawhorse. I couldn't see anything, and now all the deer are looking at me. And I couldn't see the whole, I could see like half his body, so I just kind of put it where I thought was perfect and squeezed the trigger, and I missed. Clean miss. And I kind of panicked, low-key, just low-key. I panicked. So I stood up, and like all the deer were looking at me. There was like 7 does, 1 other buck, and him. Everything else was looking at me. He was looking the dead opposite direction. So I don't know if you heard the bullet go off, and it kind of confused him. But I rushed a shot. I hit him that time, and I hit him a little back, and he kind of was like running away. And I didn't like the shot, and I kind of wanted to end it before I had to track him for a day. So I kept winging lead at him. And the last shot, I ended up drilling him right perfect in the heart, and it dropped him. And it wasn't my best rifleman showing, I guess, but it worked. I didn't ruin any meat or anything, and I was happy with it. So, wasn't my nicest buck to the date, and honestly, one of my nicest bucks that I've ever killed. I just wish it was wider. I mean, it's a nice buck, just not very wide, about 12 inches. But I was happy with it, and I actually called my dad and got a hold of him, and I was like, "Hey, come up and help me out." I was so excited, you know, help me out got this thing, and I wanted to show him and stuff. And it took him forever to get up to me, so I was just waiting, and I ended up seeing 3 bucks as I was waiting for them that they could have shot at. One ended up walking, like there was a 3-point that pushed a doe, literally walked, I'm talking, stepped over top my backpack, my chair, and walked right next to the sawhorse where I was sitting, and I shot this one. So it was a fun hunt. I ended up filling a tag out on one of the nicest bucks that I've killed, just not very wide. And then the next year, near the same area, I got a wider buck. But it this is my last year. This is my 16-year-old license, I think, or 15-year-old license. I don't remember which one it was. It was my last year to shoot a buck that had less than 3 in one side. So I took that advantage and ended up filling a tag on a nice big giant wide fork 4. So my brother shot a nice. This is the year my brother started his trophy buck streak, which is still current. He shot one. I wanted to move my stand, and my dad thought it was a bad idea, but they ended up throwing my brother's right where I wanted to throw mine. So, first thing in the morning, I heard my brother shoot. I went over, and he ended up shooting a really nice buck. And they left. They were leaving, and my dad's like, "Well, let's go up there and sit in his stand." He's like, "We've been seeing deer all morning, and I only seen a doe." So I went up, sat in there. I wasn't there an hour. And my dad was calling me when I shot this. My phone was buzzing on vibrate when I shot this buck. It didn't go anywhere. I shot my dad's 300 once again, and it just plopped over. It was nice. So it was my widest. It might be my. It's not my widest now, but it was wide. And then the next year, I went and hunted a rifle on my uncle's property. and filled my tag on one of my it was my top 3 bucks, probably top 2. Nice little 7-point. Once again, I don't know if you'd consider that. I mean, it's close to an inch, but not really, but I consider it a 7-point. This buck was awesome. Like, it was like the 3rd day or something, and my dad was going to put on a drive for me to just see if we can move a deer somewhere, and he ended up pushing this deer to me with about 5 does over a little bank, and I was in a tree stand, and they come across. I put it on him, and I made a perfect shot. My dad's 300 at about 80 yards, and I've never seen a blood trail like I've seen this one. He actually ran, which was really surprising in the first place. Normally they don't run that close with dad's 300. They don't run. But he ran about 60 yards, but I could see it the whole time. He went out of the field into an oak flat, and he just left a 10-foot blood trail on just the whole way, and it was incredible to witness that. But made a great shot. And the really cool thing about this buck is a lot of, I don't know if you can tell in the camera, but every one of his tines curves really crazy. You can kind of tell there. But it's really kind of cool. Even his main beams curve some. It's kind of cool though. This buck's really a cool looking buck. And at the time I was more than pleased with this buck. It was probably one of the nicest, at the time it was my nicest buck I've ever killed. So I was pleased with it. Still am. And this same year, my brother, the first day, shot a nice 8 as well. So, which made the 2nd year in a row that he shot a nice mountable 8. And the next year after that, I filled this tag on this scrapper. I had college then. I was in my first year in college, and damn fly. But that is 1 inch, by the way. Barely, but I measured it. It was 1 inch. And I actually have trail cam pics of this buck. I have trail cam pictures of this buck early in the season, and his G2s were actually really tall. Really tall. I'm talking like 6-7 inches each. And he must have broke them off. But I ended up walking down to my brother's stand. Once again, he shot another nice buck. Went down to his stand, and he ended up having, like, I got in, so on the side of the thing, I walked in, we built stands, we built these big block stands. So I walked up in, got ready, and I seen white of like something, like just a white spot down there, and it was a deer's nose, and I was trying to find out it was a bunch of red brush, what it was, and I seen it had antlers, and I seen these 2 tines, and I finally got a sight of this one, and I said, it looks about 1 inch, and it is, it's actually 1 inch tall from the main beam. It's like a 1 inch, 1/4 or something, but it looked about an inch, but I couldn't tell if it continued or not, and I just figured, I mean, whatever, even if it's a bruiser, I might as well just, let him have it. So I did, with my 300 with mag, and dropped it right in the spot, and that was it. That was it, but it's wide, about 15 inches. So I was content with it. It was a beater, but it happens. And my pride and glory, which I have a video of it from last year, which I might end up putting a segment in. I didn't really get this on film, which I'm really kind of disappointed in, I guess. It was the last day of last archery season, and I had college, I had class, so I came home and I rushed into the woods, and I seen four bucks. I seen 1 big buck, just got a glimpse of him, and I seen 3 smaller bucks, one which I found a shed of. So I was in a pine patch, the sun went down a little earlier there, I couldn't see as well, so I figured I'd go out and sit near this field edge nearby and just watch the sun go, hey, excuse me. But anyway, I went out and I sat next to the edge as I was watching the sun go down. Stupid fly. Anyway, and this ended up being what that turned into. I sat down and I actually, funny thing is, I actually got caught with my pants down, literally. I was taking a pee and I turned around and he was chasing a doe across the field, and I put a last go for it, the Hail Mary stalk onto him, and it turned out perfect. I mean, it turned out unbelievably perfect, and I had my camera with me, and I didn't have a tripod, and I left the camera in the backpack and just went for it, and I didn't have my GoPro. I had my GoPro every day of the season that I hunted on my bow, but that day, it was dead. I was in a hurry. I just said, heck with it, I'm going hunting. Left it at home, and this is what happens. But I ended up doing that. I stalked it about 120 yards in an open field. Like, I went through an open field, and he was chasing a doe, and there was probably like a 20 to 30 foot little dinky patch of locust trees and brush, and he was just pushing her around in a little tight circle right in that little patch. And she ended up popping down the right side. It's kind of a sloped hill, and I got right next to it, and I was going to either shoot her, because I had both my tags left. I was going to shoot her if I had to, and she was about 40 yards. And I was like, I'll wait till see where he goes. And he ended up, oh my god. He ended up coming up on the right or left side of the patch at about 50 yards. And I drew back on him. And I've never shot that far at a deer. I've shot that far in the backyard. I've shot with 60 in the backyard, but never that far in a deer. He's about 50 yards, and I drew back, and he turned right away, and I put it down. I no longer put it down, and he turned right back broadside. So I drew back, and he looked at me. So I figured I'd aim a little low, so I did. I aimed a little low, and he didn't duck much. I let it off, and he didn't duck much, but I drilled him. 50 yards, I smoked him. And the excitement, I'm 20 years old, and this is the last year. And this is my first buck with a bow, and I have hunted every year with a bow since I was 12, which I've hunted hard, a lot of them, because I actually was homeschooled for a few years, so I actually hunted almost every day for like 3 archery seasons. So I hunted hard. I've hit bucks, never found them. I've had broadheads fail on me. Won't name any brand. Maybe in the comments below. But I had broadheads fail on me in the beginning. And I switched up to Rage, and I've had no issues at all, ever, with them deploying or killing a deer. And the excitement, I mean, you guys could probably tell a little bit in the video. Like, I was kind of lost for words in the video. It's kind of embarrassing, but I was kind of really lost for words in the video, because I was just astounded. He only went 20 yards, plopped over. I called my dad and was just ecstatic for it. But not huge buck. Like, he's not huge in any way, shape, or form. But for a first buck with a bow and a last day archery and the way it happened, I'm tickled to death with this thing. I mean, I'd take that every year, honestly. I mean, it was really, 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 really amazing. Just kind of blessed with it. But like I said, in the video, you could honestly tell that I was a little excited. I was kind of just like mumbling and fumbling along. And I was just lost. I was lost for words with it. But yeah, I mean, it was interesting. It was a fun time. But just a little 8 point. I was happy with him. This year, I'm going to head back out here, like I said, 16 days. I hunt 2G, which is honestly one of the hardest hunted, like, WMUs. So I'm going to attempt to get a bigger buck. I want a nice buck. I want a wall-mountable buck. And my brother, I didn't tell you, but my brother killed another buck last year, which you guys see in the video as well, which makes his fourth. That means 4 in a row, 2G, mountable bucks, which is... But I'm going to try to hit one on the wall this year, I think, and I might pass up a couple bucks we'll see what happens. I don't really know. We'll go with, I don't know how much time I'm going to have to hunt, so I'm just going to see what happens and go with the flow. So I hope you guys enjoyed this like little video. I hope it was entertaining. And maybe I'll find some other filler videos for next week and see what happens. So thanks for watching Down Under Outdoors, and as always, God bless.